Here we go. It's been a minute. We're back in the, I guess, pseudo Yellowbrick studios called AKA the Zoom. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I know we're living through a crazy time right now called COVID. The way I look at it is we're living through history, so we just got to work with what we have in front of us. But all that being said, I mean, we still are able to make it happen. Dion Walcott from Yellowbrick, VP of Partnerships. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. We got Sean from OSD and so on and so on. So go ahead, Sean.
Greetings, everybody. Sean Williams from OSD, Obsessive Sneaker Disorder. We're back. Another Find Your Road. I am ready, as I hope you guys are. This really feels like circa 2007 with OSD when we first got started.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in. D. Wells, Obsessive Sneaker Disorder. Man, we just hope you're safe. We hope you're healthy, taking care of you mentally, spiritually, and physically as best as possible, because this is definitely, as Dion said in the beginning, this is historic. I mean, we've never been here. We've never experienced this before. And I think about how we, as human beings, are all interconnected. And we know that this coronavirus doesn't discriminate. One thing for sure, this is the great equalizer that a lot of people talk about. I think now more than ever, we have to come together and figure out how we move forward, but also document our stories. And that's exactly what we're doing here with this Find Your Road series. And we have been doing it. And tonight especially is special for us because we're joined by Chris Jean, who, I mean, a man from Queens, you know, coming live and direct from Queens. I won't say I'm partial to Queens too, Laurelton, Queens, stand up, you know, by way of the Virgin Islands. But welcome to the show, Chris.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. I guess to introduce myself, Chris Jean, son of Dominic and Marilyn, good or great brother, husband, friend, great person. Right now, I'm currently senior director of Grassroots basketball for the NBPI, Think 450. I don't really like to see myself defined as my job, so I wanted to lead with that in the beginning. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to this great conversation and just talking.
So how have you been keeping yourself busy, more importantly in your role in your job, but then also on a personal level?
I honestly, I like to be alone. Me and my wife, we've known each other for a very long time. Just got married though recently, about 2 years ago. So thank God we love each other and like each other, because we'd be going crazy if we weren't. But personally, setting a routine, honestly, waking up 7:30, working out, and then kind of starting the day, kind of keeping a routine, making sure where you do your work, but then also making sure make sure you have time for fun. So we'll set lunch times together. We'll set like little dates together and stuff like that. Just kind of keeping a routine. Work-wise, we're actually very busy.
Okay.
Part of my job is creating opportunities for our players who are our bosses, creating opportunities for them to either impact fans or get their brand out and make sure they're looked at in the best light. So part of that comes with our grassroots programs, whether it be our basketball camps, our clinics, or experiential experiences. So looking at what we do and kind of taking it virtual. And it's been pretty busy. We're actually busier than we were before, honestly.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. I mean, a lot of industries are in or will be in what we call, or what D is called originally, and I've adopted it because it fits so well, the Great Reset button. And I think a lot of people, which part of the reason why we're here, we had to make sure that we spoke to you. First of all, I'm happy we were able to get you back on after we were set to actually do this the week that this world changed. And being able to make sure that we still were able to give people the opportunity to hear your story. So, one of the things that we want to make sure that people get from you, on top of seeing the grind and hustle and the way you've adapted today, is where this all began. So let's start there with a little bit of where your journey in the sports industry began. I know you from middle of the road, for a while. We've worked together for a long time, but let's talk about the Queens reign supreme days.
Yeah, so I grew up in Queens, but I grew up in Rosedale, Queens. I grew up playing in a park called Brookville Park, and I was pretty good. And we used to play in this summer tournament called I forgot the name of the tournament, but it was in our park, and it was run by his name is Stu Davis, and I love this guy to this day. He seen me grow up, and I went to Brooklyn Tech, and then after that I went to Polytech, Brooklyn Poly, NYU Poly. It's changed. It's got a lot of different names changed. But he heard, he was like, "Hey man, I hear you're pretty good. If you don't if you don't go overseas or anything like that, you can always coach." So while I was in college, he got me a job working Knicks summer camp. And Stu, he's been working the Knicks, the scores table for over like 30 years. Like he's seen everybody play, and he's still there till this day.
Yeah.
So I started working Knicks summer camp, did a pretty good job there while I was in college. And it kind of just built up from there to where I was working summertime and then, working part-time on their street team, actually just giving out flyers and tickets when nobody wanted tickets. Like had to literally force tickets in people's hands and stuff like that. So that helped me kind of, become less shy and more just out and being out. And then that built up to me actually just being in the office and kind of being the leader of the street team. And then, that built up to me a few years down the line, actually like running the street team. And then, doing a bunch of different jobs while I was there, like helping run the alumni program, keeping guys in the Knicks, inside the community, helping run the Liberty Street team, doing all their community stuff. I like to think like if you've gotten a T-shirt from the Knicks in the streets in the past 10, 12 years, I probably
had something to do with that.
Honestly. But then after that, for the past 2-3 years, I jumped ship and went to the NBPI because I thought it was a better opportunity, a lot of potential there, and I'm looking forward to everything we're doing.
So you hit on something that I think people need to really hear and sink in. Having worked with an organization that was, number one, the New York Knicks are in the top NBA market in the entire business. And number two, it's an organization that has always been out and about in the community. How did you work that to your advantage to sharpen your skill?
It's like a social experiment. That's the kind of guy that I am. Like you got to learn both sides. You got to learn the streets and you got to learn the corporate side and the way both worlds work, because that's the only way you're going to be able to move in the game, right? Like you need to know the rules of the game to be able to move. So just being at the heart, grassroots, like knowing how Knicks fans are and just how people are, right? Because those people on the streets are a totally different genre of people than the people that are kind of in the seats in the 100 sections who actually spending that money on tickets or whatever. So you got to know who you're kind of dealing with. The great thing about basketball is it's kind of an equalizer too, right? Like you get on court and it comes down to your skills. It don't matter what race you are, how much money you got. It's like you're gonna show and prove. Right. So taking all those into account, again, just learning how to move and how to marry both of those to be able to make the best out of the situations that you're in.
Yeah. So once you got inside, were you surprised by how much of an operation you were exposed to and how many different pieces it takes to make a sports organization run?
It was very eye-opening, honestly. I guess a lot of people don't even realize, the NBA, does a great job at there's the game, and I'll say honestly, the Knicks, they might be the best at it. Shout out to Lauren Trusty, who runs that whole EP, but they do a great job at, no matter what's going on the floor, when there's a timeout, they're still keeping you engaged. There's so many things that go into that. There are people who run the lights. There are people who run stats to the GMs. There's people who, even to the people who are, selling popcorn and all that. There's so many logistical things that go into putting on a show. It's ridiculous, man. And knowing that helps you realize there's so many different ways to kind of stay in the game while not even being able to kind of just play in the game. Like there's the team driver, there's the airplane guy who runs the airplane. There's a guy who does that schedule. There's a guy who, talks to the hotels and gets better rates so guys can stay there. Like this, it's amazing, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the other part of that is in being exposed to that and running those various aspects of the New York Knicks programs in the community, which ones, when you were ready for your next chapter, did you feel were the sharpest tools you were taking with you?
I would say the sharpest, and it wasn't just at the Knicks. It's like this was just me, right? Mm-hmm. And with every situation you go through, it's a learning phase, or you get to refine your skills because everything is relatable, right? But just going into my next chapter, I would say one of them was relationships, right? I'm personally not a transactional person, and you hear in the industry a lot. It's all about networking and all that stuff. I think that's kind of all fake. Right, you're honestly just building relationships and true relationships, right? It's not transactional just to where, you do this for me, I'll do this for you, because there are a lot of people like that in this industry. But like when you get to a person who has a lot to offer, they can feel that vibe, they can feel that energy where it's like, all right, I know this person wants something from me, so they'll act to you differently, right? So it wasn't always about who knows you. I mean, it wasn't about who you know, it's more about who knows you and what's your rep, right? And being able and doing all the things that I did, I've been able to build a good rep to like, all right, this guy gets his job, he gets the job done. I could mess with this guy,
Do you think there were either some things that were taught to you, from just you're growing up, with your family and your home and upbringing that you've applied to everything you've done? What are some tenets that you have?
I would shout out my parents and my family. Like, we were raised to be great, and maybe it's because we're Haitian and Caribbean. I would come from school with a 99 on the spelling test, and my dad will be like, what happened to the other point?
Yep.
Right. And it's all about perspective, right? Like I could look at it and be like, man, this guy hates me, whatever. I'm looking at it like, yo, he wants me to be great. Greatness is the expectation. So you're used to that. Right. And just being my height or whatever, it's like, I'm never going to let you outwork me ever. Like, that's just me. And I hate losing. I hate it. I know how to lose, but I hate it. So I'm going to do whatever I can, along the the ethical lines, I'm going to do whatever I can to make you not lose, to make myself not lose, or my team or whoever I'm representing not lose, right? And I represent something bigger than myself. It's not just me. It's when I walk out on the street, I'm representing my family. I'm representing whoever, right? So I always have to kind of be in the best light.
Absolutely.
I mean, to piggyback on that, I mean, shout out to you for being able to navigate everything you've navigated. Maybe speak to like some of the moments where you had to pivot, because we're living through a live pivot right now, in your career where you work for the Knicks and you moved on to the Players Association. Like, is there moments that stand out where you had to make a decision, and how did you make that decision?
When you say make the decision, what do you mean?
Like, it's like, think about when you decided to leave the Knicks and go on to your next journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a pivotal moment, because it's like
Yeah.
you leave something behind and start something new.
Yeah.
A lot of people are fearful in that time because it's a brand new experience. So like, what did you do? Like, what were some of the steps you did to make that choice?
Honestly, is a big part of it, other than just like stacking everything up.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about, it's not about money for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's about really what makes you happy. If anybody's asking, even since young, it was like, I always felt like I was going to do something great. Right? So the deciding factor was, somebody's like, yo, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said, I just want to be happy. Since I was a kid, I don't know why, that was just me. So that deciding factor was kind of just going with my heart and being like, where do I feel the most love, or where can I get the most work-life balance where I can kind of just be more of myself and play to my strengths. Where can I do that the most? And it ended up being at where I am now. Now I could always also say, like, again, this is how I personally feel. Like, everything's always going to be all right. Everything always works out. I've been great at what I've been able to do. So whatever I picked and chose, I was going to figure out a way to make it work anyway. It just so happened is I am where I am now, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I think it's an important message for people to know that you didn't do it because of the money.
Nah.
Like, a lot of people chase the bread and not realize it was your passion and happiness that you're actually doing it for. So I think that's dope.
Yeah.
Do you think
So, go ahead,
being a point guard has helped you? I mean, I think of everything that you've done, from the Knicks to where you currently are, the Players Association. A lot of it is rooted in what you said earlier about your competitive nature, being able to have that mentality that you're going to win, that it's going to be okay. I hear a lot of optimism in there. What are you optimistic about right now? Like, what are you thinking about these days?
I would say, honestly, like, I'm and that optimism, again, I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
I've always been able to look at the best in the situation, always and all the time. Like, it's raining, well, it's gonna be sunny another day, or But like right now, honestly, I'm really optimistic for the world. Like this, as bad as COVID has been, and it's forced people to kind of retreat. But it's also, if you're in that kind of mind space, it has forced everybody to kind of look inside themselves and be like, what is really important in my life? Barring, losing your job, or, God forbid, family dying and all that other stuff.
Right.
But it's like, it's allowing people to kind of work on themselves, because whatever you're doing, if you don't have this strong foundation of self, you're not gonna, in the end, that superficial stuff is gonna kind of run out, and you're not gonna really, be able to be functional.
How do you, and I agree. How do you think this is going to affect the world of sport, but specifically in your world is basketball. I mean, basketball is, like you said, it's something that we all can do. We don't need a whole lot of equipment like other sports. I mean, you could set up a hoop with the trash can and we're all still yelling Kobe as we take that shot, right? I mean, how does this affect grassroots events and programming?
It's interesting, and you know, you when you're looking at certain things, you got to look at, you know, where you were, where you are now, and then kind of projecting where you think, based on everything that's going on, what's going to be happening in the next like 12 months or so, right? And you know, for us in the grassroots, you know, world, you know, a lot of the things that we do are running like basketball programs. So we're looking to see, it hasn't been finalized yet, but we may or may have to cancel some of our camps. Our camps may have, you know, 150 kids, 200 kids per session. What is that temperature going to be like in the next, you know, in the summertime?
Right.
Even if it's okay to go back outside, you could look at it two ways, right? Parents may want to send their kids because they've been in the house for the past 4 months, or parents may be like, you know what, I'm not with it.
Still afraid. Still afraid.
So for us, we're kind of trying to pivot, and you know, it should be announced within the next week or two. But like, we're working on virtual programming and virtual training where we're able to reach out to our kids in our database to be able to still engage with them while they're at home or while they're, you know, in their basement or in their backyard. Because you have the kids, you have trainers, but then you also have players who may or may not feel comfortable being in front of certain people because of their health. Right? This thing has, like you said, it's been the great equalizer, because it's not like, you know, poverty, people know about it in the world. Racism, people know about it in the world, but sometimes, or a lot of times, they don't really experience it. Everyone has experienced this thing, right? So everyone is affected.
Yep.
So I mean, this is the thing where we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So you're planning as best, right? I mean, you're doing as best as you can. How is it? Has it? I'm assuming, and I don't like assuming, but it's made your job a little bit harder, because everything that you were probably planning. How far in advance are you doing summer? You know, planning for your summer programs?
I would say as soon as it's over in the summertime, in like August, we're planning it in November.
Okay.
The November before.
So you're doing reassessments and then planning for the next one.
Yeah, and you know, it's you know, people could say it's about perspective, right? It's harder. Some people could say it's harder. I could look at it like it's just more fun and it's challenging.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Like, you know, everybody's going to kind of rise to the times and be like that is where you see, you know, if you're worth the salt, right? Like, how do you respond in these certain times? And come out ahead and doing some good stuff that is able to impact whoever you're meant to impact.
How has?
Well, you know,
I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Chris. So, because the Players Association works with a lot of the players and helping them to realize and actually materialize on some of their other interests, do we think that this is something where you're going to now have more athletes having those conversations with you regarding how do we make a difference post-COVID-19? How do we address some of the problems that currently exist in terms of people being able to eat, people getting screenings and tests. Do you see that? I'm not asking you to predict this, but just throwing it out there as something that, you know, there are a few forward-thinking athletes who I've seen on social media who are talking about this. Do you think this is the kind of thing that will be more of a way of life and things that you guys will work on?
I would say in the short answer, to overgeneralize it, yeah, like to our players' credit, like a lot of them are a lot, I don't want to say smarter, because not the players that came before weren't dumb, but like they're a lot way more in tune with the times, and they're not so one-dimensional when it comes to, well, you know more about them, and a lot more of their interests, and again, like, this has been a great equalizer, so it's on everybody's mind. So it's not even like forecasting to me, like a lot more players may or may not be into it. Like, you're even getting a lot of interest right now to where, you know, it's not just, it's bigger than basketball.
Yes.
Right? So it's on everybody's mind. How do we, you know, create some impact, but then also how has our world changed, and whatever we do or what we're doing, it's not about going back to work, it's about going back to work better.
Yeah.
Right? Going back to what we were doing better. So that a lot of the problems that we've had are not there when we do go back. Right?
Yeah.
So here's a question I have, because, you know, when you say basketball, a lot of people think on court right away, just because of the nature of the sport. But what are some of the things that you're seeing players are interested in that are off the court that typically, like, we wouldn't know about? You know, like we have a sneaker course, so like we see a lot of players involved in sneakers, but like, be interesting to hear, like, someone told me this the other day, basketball is a lot of times for someone in the NBA is their first career, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't want to pursue a different career. Interested to know what kind of other stuff they're into.
I mean, I will put it at this, like, just in the NBA alone, and I'm just speaking on the NBA, like, there are 450 players in the league, 450 available roster spots.
Right.
That's 450 different personalities.
Absolutely.
So just, you know, just because they play basketball doesn't mean that they're not people.
I agree.
Right? You're just thinking of 450 different people who have a lot of different interests. It could be art, it could be music, it could be getting water to a town, getting clean water to a town. Like, basketball is the only sport that relates to everything. And maybe soccer, I wouldn't say football can't do it, baseball can't do it, hockey can't do it. Basketball is the only sport that relates to art, fashion, music, spirits, you name it, which is why it's just a part of the culture. So honestly, anything and everything you can think of, like Lance Thomas, he has a fishing, he has a foundation that is tied together through fishing, because he's big into fishing. Right, and he gets kids based on certain scholarships and gets them a part of this leadership program, and they're all tied together through fishing.
Got it. I mean, that's pretty dope, because you wouldn't think that someone in the NBA, well, the general public would be like, wow, someone into fishing? That's crazy.
It's someone is. I mean, someone would probably, you know, be into fishing as well. Absolutely.
So Sean, indeed, there's a couple questions that I just threw in the chat that some people asked.
Okay. These are some good questions here. All right, Chris, this is a good one. Check this one out. And shout out to people submitting questions as well. We thank you. We appreciate you. This question, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but nonetheless, with all the deceit and rejection that comes with the journey in the sports management business, where did you find the inspiration to stay on task?
Good one.
Great one. Again, it wasn't me, and it's how I was raised, right? Like, you're never gonna outwork me, ever, right? With the deceit and rejection, honestly, if you're gonna be great, Like that all that comes with it. Jordan never made all of his game winners. He made a lot of them though, and every one that he made, you know, he gained some confidence in that, right? But with the greater reward is there's more risk that's going to come with that. You just got to keep going, right? Because life is not, you know, just one straight shot up. It's up, it's down, it's backwards, it's to the side. Like, you got to enjoy that journey. You're not there to get to where you want to be. You kind of want to enjoy that journey, because when you look back on it, you're going to be like, damn, I came from here to here. And honestly, when you look back on it, it probably wasn't that long of it, you know, that long of time that it took you to get to that point. But even if you did, you got to enjoy that journey, and there's a beauty in that right there.
Yep. All right, we got another question. Another good one. As a man of color in the world of business, what are some of the challenges you face, and did you find yourself having to do more than your counterparts to prove your value?
I would say absolutely. Like you always, you know, being who I am, you always have a chip on your shoulder, right? And it's okay to walk around with that and use that as your motivation. Some of the challenges was, you know, just I wasn't used to being in the office when I first got into there, so I didn't know the culture. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know, you know, certain things to wear or you know, certain things to say. I would say one of the biggest tasks was, or one of the biggest challenges was kind of looking at where you are and forgetting who you are, if that makes sense, right? Always, and it's funny, like where we are now in this world, that's more accepted. Back in the day, you know, you guys can attest to this too, coming up, like it wasn't really celebrated to kind of be who you are. Nowadays, it is a lot more. So I think one of the biggest challenges was, you know, remembering who I am and why I'm great and why I want to do what I want to do and sticking to that and letting that shine, whether you're in meetings or when you're walking through the halls or when you do your work or whatever. Like, just make sure you're doing your job and you're doing it the best you can.
Yes, sir. You want to take that last one,
Go ahead, Sean.
Dion?
Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
All right. So one more. What is your message to the young brown boys and girls living in this world of intentional psychological oppression? It's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
I mean, it's heavy, but you know, that's a great question. I was about to curse, but I was about to be like, honestly, man, like, who cares, right? You have to have. It's tough, and it's very tough to get there, but you have to have a very strong mind, and you have to be very strong mentally. And again, remember who you are and like kind of where you came from, and kind of where you want to be, and actually do the work to get to where you want to be personally and inside. Like, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror and like love yourself, right? Because once you have that, nobody can tell you anything else. Right. Nobody can tell you you're not this or you're not that if you truly believe it inside you, if that makes sense. Right? You have to be so strong mentally, and I'm very big on energy. Once you are intentional about who you are and who you want to be, the universe will start to attract, you know, things that you really need, right? But you're not going to get what you need until you're like really ready to receive that. Do that work internally to kind of be like, you know, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and everything will like come back to you.
Yep.
So Chris, I have to ask, as a player, your favorite sneakers to play in?
Top 5.
See, I just asked it for one, but you go, okay.
I got.
Well, we got that question for someone in the audience. We got top 5 they want.
Top 5. Honestly, When I was young, I played with whatever I had.
Mm.
Now, I would say Jordan 10s.
Okay.
And I would say Kobe's.
Okay.
Honestly, that's really it.
You get two. You get two.
I will only
Top
play
5
that.
question askers.
Those are the only sneakers I would play in, and maybe some Jordan 11s.
Okay. What was a moment, maybe a game, where you just were having one of those like unbelievable moments, and what it felt like? I want you to kind of just think about that for a second. I'm take you back there. Maybe it was elementary, maybe it was college. It was when you played, people don't know, but you teased it earlier. You played international ball. Was there a game or a moment where you had one of those games on the court, and it just seemed like everything kind of coalesced for you?
I would say it was two. One, I was in high school, and it was at Brooklyn Tech. It was our senior year. We were undefeated at home to a point. And I had a terrible game versus like Midwood or something like that at their place. And then we played them at home, and it was like we had a really good game, and it was down to like the last 30 seconds or something like that. And we were down like 1. And there was this crazy sequence of events where like, you know, you get into a timeout, you're talking to your boys, and you're like, all right, you're going to do something big for me. I'm going to do something big. Like, we all just like rapping and talking. And then I caught a charge, and then we got the ball back. My boy got it. He got it inbounds, and then like set a pick for me. I hit the ball. I had the shot top of the key, and then we went up 1, and then going back down, he caught another steal or something. Like it was one of those like, damn, beautiful moments type there. And then another one when I was in Mexico, and we was down by 1 again, and coming off a free throw, they miss a free throw. I'm standing at the wing, and before the free throw miss, my other guard, he was like 6'3", jumped out the gym. I caught the ball on the rebound. I caught the ball on the wing, and literally took 1 step and threw it up to the hoop. And it was the most perfect pass I ever threw. It went to the bottom of the backboard. He jumped up, caught an alley from there. And like the crowd went crazy. It was one of like the most beautiful things. I wish we had that on tape, and it was amazing.
Now, what did you learn from those moments? What was the lesson?
It ain't over till it's over, man. Like, you know, it's not a learning thing. It's more like just reinforcing what you already know, right, and what you already believe. Like it's never over till it's over, and then even if it is, you know, hopefully you learn something from that made you better. That makes you better for the next time.
Now, had you practiced that play, the Mexico had you practiced that before?
Never. Like, we just looked at each other. He looked at me like, I'm going up. I'm like, all right, cool. Go.
The nonverbal head nod, eye contact.
Let's go.
Okay. Those are 2 great stories.
Those were dope stories. I wouldn't make it harder on him and ask him if he remembers what sneakers he's wearing, but he probably doesn't.
Probably some beaters. I don't even know.
Here's an interesting one, and just asking this as a New Yorker like yourself who travels and we're into a lot of stuff. And you mentioned always being able to do whatever you do to the best level that you want to do it. How much of where you're from, that us being New Yorkers, you being Queens, how much of where you're from helps you with the confidence to succeed in everything that you try to do?
I think it's a lot. I think you have something to kind of identify with, or kind of be able to rep, or something to be proud of, or make proud of you. Right? When I was in high school, I went to Brooklyn. Coming from Queens, I went to Brooklyn Tech, and our JV coach would get on us. Guys from Queens are soft and this and that. So me and my best friend, we always have to kind of have each other's backs and like make him stop, joking on Queens. But like, those jokes on the train, or those jokes in the locker room, or those jokes in the lunchroom, going back and forth at folks like that reinforced like how strong I felt about myself and about where I was from, right? To the point where like when Nas's album I Am comes out, you've seen a bunch of Brooklyn dudes with I Am hats and all that stuff, and now I'm looking like, oh yeah, Queens is actually cool. Like, come on.
To second that, and it's funny you took it to music. How important is music in keeping you inspired and or at peace with doing what you do? Because you deal with a lot of people and a lot of different personalities. How much of music is a part of, that inspiration to go get it, and then that piece where you want to just level off and just chill?
Music is huge. I love music. I remember, when I was in college, like Napster came out, right? And having crazy fast download speeds, being able to download millions of songs at a time, like, and having a crazy music library. But like, think about music, anything that has happened to you in your life, like, when there's a good song, you remember where you were when that song came out.
So true.
Right? Mm-hmm. And there are certain verses or things that speak to you where, you might have heard it 10 years ago and it meant something 10 years ago, but you read it now or you listen to it now, and you're like, damn, that's something totally different, man. Like it's a crazy kind of perspective. So I typically go back to songs that I love, like, and it's funny, like I was working today and I was listening to Nas' Street Dreams remix for R. Kelly. One of my favorite Nas songs ever. And the last verse like just spoke to me, right? He's like, rise up and start the raining. Take the weak link up out the chaining. Yeah, take the weakest link up out the chaining, rise and start raining, right? Like that's like, I'm smarter. I'm moving people out of my circle that's not even good for me. Mm-hmm. And it helps me elevate more. Like man, I love music, man. It does something to you that speaks to your soul, man.
You got a special shout out.
Rudy King.
And it's a special shout out for Rudy King, who, of course, we have a special shout out for. Rudy, what up? Hope all is well with you, my brother.
Hey, speaking of a journey, me and Rudy, I met Rudy at 5-star basketball camp. While I was coaching, I was like kind of getting on the scene or whatever. And he and my mentor, Michael Williams, he passed away. But, I met Rudy from those days, man, and he was always a good dude, man. Rudy, what up?
What's up, Rudy? Salute.
How important is mentorship for you, Chris? You've mentioned a couple people's names, this evening already.
It's huge, because that's where you draw experiences from. You always want to go through things for yourself, but you have to hear from other people. You can't just be siloed and be doing your own thing. Like, right. I could even draw off Sean, when he was at the Garden and me and him talking about stuff. Like, like being able to ask certain folks who've been where you've been or just give you a different perspective is amazing, right? And then, you know, always being able to honor those folks, you know, when you get to a certain place. Like Stu Davis, to this day, anytime I get a promotion, like I will walk to him and I will let him know. And like the last promotion I got, I walked him in his ear. And again, he knew me from since I was a kid. And he was like, you know, all I had to do was listen to him. Because he's tried to put on a lot of folks, but, you know, he's like, all I had to do was listen. Till this day, when I told him, like, you know, I got my promotion, I left him alone. And like, I turned back, I saw him like crying in his seat before the game, because it was just something so beautiful to him. Right. So, man, mentorship is important. It's crazy, man.
Yes, it is. Indeed, it is.
Offline, we talked about kind of your circle of friends, and one of the things you talked about was mentorship and sharing information. I want you to share something you're working on right now, and obviously that involve, you know, financial literacy, and that involve basically planning for each other's family to kind of, again, take information and share what you know with each other and keep it together. I want you to talk about that, please.
Yeah. So, you know, last year, financial literacy is important. It's huge. And what we're going through right now, like, I think people are seeing it a lot more. Players, that's something that's very important to them because, you know, a lot of them came from somewhere and now they're making millions of dollars. So it was important for us to, when we do have these basketball programs, it's bigger than basketball. And I personally, I don't want it to be just basketball. So, you know, in a lot of our programs, we add in life skills. So, you know, before I got there, we were doing like bullying and things like that. Then we kind of turned and changed it to financial literacy. So like for like 15 minutes a day in our summer camps, we actually teach financial literacy to the point where at the end of the week, kids learn about an hour of financial literacy. And, you know, we're not the pros in it. We have a partner that helps us with it, but that just kind of starts the conversation. And that's all we need to do. Just introduce folks to what's going on, and then they could take it from there themselves.
What do you cover? Give us an example.
And we keep it, you know, for our programs, we have kids from 9 to 17. So we do a great job at tailoring it to the audience, right? So from, you know, let's say we're focusing on savings, right? From 9 to 12, you know, you tailor that message for the 9 to 12-year-olds than the 13 to 15 and then the 15 to 17-year-old kids, because they're not thinking the same way about savings, but they all should start thinking about savings, if that makes sense. Right?
Yep.
And then personally, you know, me and my wife, we, you know, we're big with community, and so, you know, we got together and we're kind of thinking of, you know, just starting like I wouldn't say like an investment group, but like, you know, talking about financial literacy and getting folks together and just being like, hey, like, you got this, I got this, we got this. Let's all get together and kind of, you know, do something bigger.
Yep. So we want to, because again, this is Find Your Road, theme, sports management, careers in sports. What are, and I think these are three on top of all of the gems that you dropped, I think these are three that people need to definitely take away with them. 3 misconceptions about working in the sports industry.
It's all fun and games. I say that's the biggest one. You're gonna make a lot of money, because you're not. First off, you might get to that point, but you know,
You got to work for it.
You got to work for it, and you know, I guess you being able to enjoy being a fan, right? Like I'm still you know, I used to be able to, I was at every single Knicks game while I was there, but I was always working. So I never got to really watch the games. You're really like doing stuff, right? Even now, like I get to go, I have the ability to go to any game in the country, but like you always end up working anyway. So it's not like you get to be this fan, and these fans, you being a fan, you can't be a fan of your boss. Like I work for these people, you know, and they're my colleagues. So, you know, it's not all that it's cracked up to be.
And there are very long hours. That's one we got to make sure we put out there for folks.
Yeah.
There are long hours working in sports.
Yeah, I would have to come to the office at 9, you know, day ends at 6 for certain people. We have a game that night, you're there till like 10:30. Got to come in the next day, do the same thing. You know, it's all about how much you love it, and you know, how are you navigating through and being as effective with the time that you have, I guess.
Couple things you said, Chris, this evening that really stand out is one, knowing who you are, not being afraid of working, and then also being patient, like enjoying, you know, the journey, the process, to know that, you know, nothing was built overnight. Do you think, is there anything, you know, else, or some other highlights that you think about who's watching this and who will? Are there some other pieces that you would want to share with, you know, our viewers and listeners?
I would say, you know, on that note about, you know, enjoying the journey, you know, it's very easy for us to look to want to be somewhere and compare ourselves to the people that are doing it the best, because that's where you want to be. You want to be, you know, with the best, but it's always important to stop and look back and be like, you know, I did this, or like congratulate yourself, because it is a long road, and there are certain wins that you stack up. It's great to, you know, be your toughest critic, but it's also good to step back and be like, hold up, that thing I did was kind of dope. So, all right, let me keep pushing. The other thing I would kind of leave with is like, you know, to be successful in life, you know, you only need to know 3 things, right? You know what you know what you don't know, and know what you need to know. You know, I've always taken that. I you know, and on my to-do list, I typically write that down to always remind me, right? Like that's a kind of God in life. You know, I know what I know what I need to know, and, you know what I don't know, so I can seek out and find how to get to where I need to go.
I'm gonna have to write that one down for myself and put it on a post-it note. I can read it all the time. It's a good, thank you. That's powerful. It's true.
Yeah.
A gem indeed, a gem indeed. So, Chris, where can, on social media, people find you? I'm pretty sure someone's going to want to reach out because of the gems that you've dropped. Let's tell them where they can find you. And go ahead.
I'm only on Instagram. I don't really go on Facebook like that. At CJEANIUS at CGenius on Instagram. And I mean, you can reach out. You know, when I was coming up, there was always somebody who I had this guy who literally answered all of my questions anytime I had a question. And like, he's another person, like till this day, anytime I get a promotion, I'll send him an email with my signature, and like, he'll be like, damn, great, man. I love it. So like, people were there for me. So I feel like it's important for when people like myself come up, you know, you always have to give back. You always got to pay it forward, because I was in that position back then. So I say that to say, reach out. I may not hit you back right away, but reach out, and, you know, I'll do my best to get back to you and 5-minute conversation is nothing.
Well,
That's
thank
true.
you. We appreciate, again, you redoing, coming back and being with us.
It was a pleasure.
We prefer to be in the flesh, in real life, for sure. But I think, like you said, having a fresh perspective, a positive perspective about all of this, like, where do we go from here? One of the things I always talk about is tell people with anything, even when you lose, you have to look for the lesson. It's the lesson and the blessing. So there's always something you can learn, and that's something you've said throughout this evening. Like, look for the lesson and don't be afraid to work. So it might be something in the Caribbean, blood that pumps through your veins. I think we're just, I think I look at you and I see that you're built, you as you say, you come from good stuff. You come from good stuff. So thank you.
My parents
Yeah,
would
man.
appreciate it. My parents would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just got to say personally to you, Chris, in knowing you over 10 years, it's almost 15 now, believe it or not. In watching and knowing personally what you have endured, and seeing personally, the way you've navigated some crazy situations and the way that you have managed to always take all the positive, even from dark and negative situations and atmospheres, to be where you are now and even being able to share that is a big deal personally for me to see you do that. And a tremendous kudos and thank you to you for being that dude.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, from the Yellowbrick side and me personally, thank you for taking the time. What stuck out the most, I think that I should reiterate, is make sure people don't chase the money, man. Like, I really appreciate that it's something that you're passionate about and you turned it into a career. I think more people need to understand it's not about the bread. It's more about, like, do you actually like what you're doing? And that really stuck out to me. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys having me on, man. And
Absolutely.
yeah, if y'all need me, I'm here. Looking to do more, whatever. Like, just reach out.
Got it.
Appreciate what you do, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for checking in too, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Make sure y'all
Yes, sir. Thank you to everybody.
for sure stay safe.